Hi, everybody. Meteorologist Joe Chaffee. Weather in 5 days in 5 minutes. Last night was my last night at FiOS One News, which is no longer on the air. And today begins 24/7 coverage on what we could probably call the Joe Chaffee Network. So I hope you can be part of that. The Joe and Joe Weather Show has been airing on YouTube exclusively for the last several months, and it will continue to air on YouTube exclusively going forward. We're going to try and do this once a week. We may not be in the same place physically, but technology will make it possible, though, so that we will be able to continue to show either via Skype or Zoom video. So we're going to work all that out. In the meantime, be sure you have my latest weather apps, the Meteorologist Joe Chaffee weather app, and Angry Ben's weather app, the Angry Weatherman, because going forward, much of my weather coverage will be going to the apps. There'll be some stuff on Facebook. Of course, the websites will be there for you, but it's all going to be about the apps and my subscription weather platform on Patreon, especially for winter weather coverage. So let's take a look at what's happening today. And the lows this morning were actually quite cold, but we didn't set a lot of records. There were over 400 records that were set yesterday between the record lows and the record low high temperatures that occurred. And some of those records were standing for well over 100 years. But the records this morning were fewer because the records for this particular date, the 14th of November, were substantially lower than what they were for the day before. But still, to see readings down in the upper teens and low 20s, and even as low as 12 at West Hampton Beach. We had a low of 17 in Somerville, 18 in Tumbling Run in South Central PA. York got down to 19, and Baltimore down to 21. So it was cold, and temperatures up in the Hudson Valley and up into southern New England down to 11 at Stafford Springs in Connecticut. Sturbridge bottoming out also at 11. So this cold air mass now has moved out. We've had clouds that have replaced it, and now we're going to see a bit of a temperature bounce today. It's going to be held back because of the clouds, and I'm thinking that we may not see some of these higher numbers until perhaps sometime this evening. A little bit of an onshore flow, the cloud cover, the cloud cover certainly holding temperatures down. Now for Friday, we're going to bounce up into the upper 40s and lower 50s, but there's another cold front coming through, and that is going to bring in another cold air mass, although this time the cold will be focused more for the northeast and the northernmost part of the mid-Atlantic states. It really isn't going into much of the rest of the U.S., and that will be with us through the weekend. So temperatures are going to be below average until further notice. Now, we are starting to see, by the way, back down through Texas, you can see this large swirl of clouds there. There's a fairly solid shortwave trough that is moving eastward in the southern part of the jet stream. And you can also see the cloud cover across the Great Lakes in the northeast. Now, some of that is warm air that it's infecting eastward, and that's producing the cloud cover that we're dealing with. There's also a cold front that is dropping down from the north. By the way, there is very little going on in terms of watches and warnings across the U.S. as things are relatively quiet from that standpoint, and also from the standpoint of precipitation. So let's take a look at the new NAM model going forward for the weekend. Those folks in the Carolinas, the coastal Carolinas, will probably see heavy rains and gales as this low starts to creep up the coast. Meanwhile, I think for us, no real problems for eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England. Friday, we should see some sunshine. There's a weak cold front that's moving on through here. It's almost very hard to find. This is by Friday evening. You've got a low just southeast of Hatteras, and there will be gales along the Carolinas from this. The weather front that's coming down from the north is going to, at least initially, it's very weak. And it'll probably just fade out as it moves eastward, but the high will not fade out. That high builds in. So we're back to colder temperatures on Saturday. Highs not getting out of the 30s, anywhere from northeast Virginia to southern New England. Maybe a few of the warm spots get close to 40. And you can see that wrapped up low that stalls off the Carolina coast into Saturday and Saturday night. So it's going to get pretty nasty here. And the NAM's actually even producing a little bit of mixed precip, suggesting in the Carolina Mountains, suggesting that cold air from this high is actually going to drain southward. I don't know if that's going to necessarily be the case, but it does keep an onshore flow here, and it does keep things chilly right through Sunday. And then after that, depending on how the high moves out, you can see it's still just kind of sitting here, and that low is just spinning away. It starts to lift up some moisture. The circulation just lifts that rain up and around. And by Sunday afternoon, actually bringing in some rain to Delaware, the Delmarva Peninsula, southern New Jersey. And at this point, of course, the high has now finally moved out. And the question for early next week is whether there'll be an impact with some rain for I think the coastal areas, New Jersey down the Delmarva Peninsula, and then on up through New England. Places to the west and south will probably won't see very much. But this is a fairly impressive wrapped up gale center, and it's going to be something that we talk about. We're going to be talking about later today. In the meantime, as far as the weekend is concerned, chilly. I think Saturday's the better of the 2 weekend days. Sunday, we're going to have that onshore flow, the storm offshore, and at the very least, clouds that are going to be swept back rather far westward, and temperatures, if barely, into the upper 30s and low 40s. And on Saturday, not out of the 30s. So we'll keep it there and end it at this point. Thanks for being here on Weather in 5. Thanks for being here for Weather in 5. My YouTube live stream tonight on my YouTube channel, Joe Chaffee. That's at 7 o'clock Eastern time. So be sure to join in. And I think that's it. And so look for more stuff later today. Patreon members, you'll get a Weather in 10 later today explaining what's going on with this storm moving up the East Coast.